Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Writers Infusion. I'm your host, Susan. I'm here with Dave, Julie, Ed, and our writer is here with us today. This is Martha Coates.
Hello.
From Massachusetts, so welcome to our show.
Thank you.
Usually we have Jen with us today. She couldn't make it, but when you go on our website, you will see that she will also post her comments along with the rest of ours. So Martha has written a short story. We'll just ask her a couple of quick questions about her writing, and then we'll go right into the story and to the critique. So we were just talking off camera, and you were saying that you've been writing for your whole life.
I think so.
And do you do more short stories, or?
No, actually, personal essay is pretty new to me, but mostly it was poetry, and I like to write children's books, and a little fiction, but not so much.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's a good mix.
Yeah, it keeps me busy. Once I get sick of one, I move to the other and keep moving.
And do you want to publish?
Do I want to?
Yes.
I think it would be wonderful, but it's not why I do it, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
This is just that need, right?
Yeah, it's sort of cathartic and sort of just like an itch that needs to be scratched, so and that's it.
Well, glad you could join us
Thank
today.
you.
So why don't we get started? We'll have you read your essay, and then
Okay.
we'll go from there.
Okay. It's called Basement Cake. My in-laws moved in with us during the second week of September. A new school year and tears had just begun, and I was actively mourning the end of summer and the beginning of an autumn that, at best, wouldn't be a good time. My father-in-law, Maury, my father-in-law, has cancer again. 8 years ago, cancer festered in Maury's throat. They moved in then, as they have now, so Maury could receive treatment at Boston's Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. That cancer was stubborn and held on with a kung fu grip for 6 months while Maury suffered a cure that nearly killed him, a medical version of shock and awe. 8 years ago, my kids were very young, 2 and 4 years old. That posed unique challenges, and I found myself saying the most bizarre things to them. No, Papa's teeth don't live in his mouth anymore. They live in a glass now. The man in the photo is Papa. Yeah, he was bigger then. Why don't you go play Legos while Papa naps in the hallway? The cancer was gone for 8 years, and every year we'd celebrate with a little champagne and an extra thank you to God before sitting to dinner. At some point, I stopped worrying that cancer could strike twice. Days before my in-laws moved in, I celebrated my 45th birthday. Every year, my mother lovingly bakes my favorite cake. I refer to it as the cake, since every other cake wishes it could taste that good. 2 layers of moist chocolate cake that I promise sigh when sliced. She covers the cake with a cooked vanilla frosting that lays thick and soft. It's very hard not to rest my face right in it. Before leaving my parents' house, my mother placed the remaining cake on a platter and insisted I take it home. Happy birthday to me. When I got home, I knew the platter wouldn't fit in our bulging kitchen refrigerator, so I tucked it into the basement refrigerator and forgot all about it. It's uncomfortable to tell people my in-laws have moved in. It opens up a conversation that's depressing and difficult to end. Everyone wants to be positive. Everyone likes to say this time will be different, less intense, less destructive. The kids are older. The cancer hasn't metastasized. It's not going to be that bad. On Monday, Maury developed a raging infection. It slipped into his blood and kept hidden in his body, quiet like a secret, until 10 p.m. on Tuesday night. If you have never heard the sound of an adult body dropping to the floor, imagine someone on a stepladder dropping a 180-pound bag of sand. Apart from the noise, the house shakes and small items rattle as your brain tries to decide what happened. At 10:08 p.m., I found myself standing in my nightgown at the end of our driveway, flagging down the emergency crew who'd been called into action. I watched, feeling useless, as Maury was lifted out of our house, strapped in a gurney chair, unconscious, frail, and as small as a baby bird. My mother-in-law bumped around, struggling to remember her shoes and purse. My husband couldn't decide if he should waste time changing clothes or leave for the hospital wearing pajamas. I watched lights flash down our street until they were out of sight. At 10:33 p.m., I remembered the cake. Sitting on the cold basement floor, the cake platter in my lap, I sliced off miniature pieces of cake and fed myself until nothing was left. I remembered all the positive things people said, how this time it was going to be better. I wish that were possible, but I know better, because cancer, good cancer, bad cancer, small cancer, large cancer, it's all a tsunami. It's swift and pounds with massive force that sweeps away everyone in its path. All you can do is suffer the storm and pray that when it passes, everyone is left standing.
So maybe we should say now that your father-in-law is doing really
He's
well.
perfect. He is perfect.
Yay.
So,
Yes.
Yeah, that was really
Yes.
good to know.
Go Maury, go.
Where it goes,
Yeah.
right.
So, and how about that cake?
Fantastic.
I mean, I just
Cake is not doing well.
Miami?
The cake is not doing well because she ate it all.
Yeah, be well.
Show and tell.
This was sort of a confession of sorts too, as you
Love it.
did the cake go.
Confection? A confession? Okay.
All right.
So, I really like that you were able to capture a small piece in what had happened. I personally find that difficult to do. So I think that's really good that you were able to pick a moment and write about it and still get across what's happening. What I'd like to see more of is more immediacy rather than just telling. So, and there's a lot of, we can talk about this, there's a lot of markup here with that regard. And there are a lot of sentences here I like, it's good, but I'd like to see it expanded a little. So my initial thought was that you could open with them arriving at your house. And, what's it like when they're moving in, and maybe this happens that night, I don't know, but it would be good to just have, that way you can see the personalities. And you were saying off camera that your father-in-law has such a positive attitude, so it would be great to read that in this essay, or story, whatever we want to call it, and see what they're like, and then bring these pieces into it. And then end it.
Share
So
all our notes with you.
Oh,
You
okay.
can write whatever you want, but I promise you to do all of our notes.
That's right. We scan everything. You can still write, but
Oh,
we scan
yes.
everything and send it to you, and also put it on our website.
Oh, perfect.
So it's all marked. You'll see it when you look at it.
Okay.
So I just lost my whole train of thought. So I just think it would be nice to kind of see that between the personalities, how they're dealing with the cancer, how everyone's reacting to it. And you could even do it in one day, because if you have something happen to him that night, it's the afternoon to the night. And you start it with the cakes in the fridge, they're arriving, everything happens, and then at the end you're eating the cake. But it's all in real time.
Chronological, yeah.
Yeah.
And chronological, because there are other things that you bring up here that you could actually bring up in conversation. So when they're moving in, maybe the kids are saying, oh, he's coming here again, or someone's saying that. Maybe they can't because they're too, no, they were young last time.
Yeah.
So I'm taking over the conversation here. But that way you could just bring all of this telling instead of showing your telling, so bring all that into the conversation. And that's where I want to start.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. First of all, I didn't look at this as a memoir. I looked at it as a short story.
I did too.
I was thinking of it in those terms. So I'm not thinking of this in terms of a memoir. So anything that I say is kind of from the point of view of constructing a story. Okay, and I feel that this is a great story because what it's trying to show is the effect on someone that the cancer isn't happening to the main character, but their life is deeply affected by this. And just to give an idea of what that effect is on them. Now, the thing about that is, I feel that there are, so in order to do that, we want to feel sympathy for the main character, okay, or empathy. And I feel that there are a couple of places where, for me, that didn't quite happen, but that there are ways to maybe alter this so that it would do that. For example, at the bottom of the first page, when you talk about the cake, that was a place where I felt like I lost empathy with the main character for this reason. She likes this cake. Okay, it's terrific. Her mother made this, but like no other cakes are good enough for her. That's what I came away with, is the impression. If her husband made a cake, if her kids made a cake, that wouldn't be as good. So that makes me feel like, what kind of person is this? And another aspect of this is that I don't get to see, it's implied in here that the main character must be doing all kinds of stuff to support this effort, but I don't see any of it, okay?
Okay.
I mean, I guess that the husband of the family works. I'm not sure if the main character does or not, but let's say not. With elderly in-laws staying so that they can go to Boston, my thought is that the main character has to take care of the house, do the meals and the cooking, probably drive the in-laws to medical appointments, take care of the kids who are at a difficult age. I mean, they're now 10, 12 by my reckoning. They're in 5th grade and 7th grade. This is hard, but we're not being shown any of that. I mean, I kind of deduce that is going on behind the scenes, but we don't see that. And I think that would go a long way to making us feel like, oh my gosh, this is a major deal. I mean, you're not going through the physical illness yourself, but it's turning your world, your life, your family's life upside down. And so I think if you could bring out more of that, I think that would make a more complete picture of what's going on.
I think it's an
May I
excellent point.
dovetail what Ed was just saying about the actions of the protagonist? I wasn't sure if it was you, so I called her protagonist. Especially when father-in-law falls. There's mention of husband going in his pajamas. There's mention of the mother-in-law trying to find her shoes and purse. No mention of the protagonist, what she's doing. So I asked, where were you? Well, I did say you at that point. Washing up or checking on the kids. And then her reaction. We need to know if she has paralysis or if she is running to his aid. We don't know what happens. We hear the sound. We are described the sound. And then we're not sure what the protagonist does. And she describes his being frail and small as a bird, which is beautiful and sad. But how about his hair and his pajamas? They're falling off his body because he's so thin. Is his hair disheveled? Did he strike his head? I'm curious about a lot of things. And then the lights. She's watching watching the lights flash down the street. Did the children wake? Did neighbors pull their curtains back? Did neighbors care and call you? Because it is only 10 at night. I'm assuming somebody would be interested. There are a couple of places where segues were needed, and I wrote actually on the first page under short story. It does say short story. That's why we're treating it as such in its entirety. And I wrote not yet. It's not its entirety. It needs more. Flesh it out, because I really would like for you to flesh it out. I might start at the bottom of the first page with days before my in-laws moved in. I celebrated my 45th, and then go in, as one of you pointed out, Sue did, chronological order. Do the birthday, and then they're moving in. There is a segue missing between the paragraph before that.
I'm not sure where I'd bring in the cake yet. I think I'd start in, if you could pull it off, with them coming in and in one day,
and if
what happens. And then to what Ed was saying, bring in all those different pieces that come in with everything that you'd have to take care of.
By the way, I love the title.
And
I love the title, Basement Cake.
Yes, and I didn't catch
where
that.
everybody puts their cake.
But I do wonder if it undercuts the ending, because something that memorable, it's like all through the story, people are going to be like, basement cake, basement
I
cake,
read
basement
that
cake.
and glossed over it. I didn't even note the title till we were about to sit down right now, and I'm so embarrassed.
I liked the
but
title.
you ended with cake, and I think if you wanted to, you could keep that as an ending because of the powerfulness of the moment and her emotions, and flesh out the rest of the story. But I do want to point out, tsunami is a great metaphor or analogy but it's swift and pounds with massive force that sweeps away everyone. And then the next sentence you say, when it passes, everyone's left standing. Those are contradictory. So choose, I hope everyone's left standing, that you're all emotionally intact and your father-in-law is healthy. But maybe it tugs at or attacks everyone in its path. Tsunamis definitely do damage, but thank goodness didn't sweep away.
I took away that sweeps away everyone in its path. I just took it
Yes.
out. Which I thought it
Right.
was more powerful, just to have it swift and pounds with massive force. I
Yes.
just stopped it there.
To Ed's other points, I teach 7th and 8th grade English, and I do short stories with my kids. There's some very short, tight short stories. This is, it's not long enough. So smile and think, wow, I can put more in, because
Yeah.
I'd like for you to flesh it out, because it doesn't say enough in these few
Okay.
pages.
That's
So
a
I
good
wrote
thing. We
down,
wanna hear more.
absolutely.
That's
So I wrote down
That's
some short stories here that you may want to use. One is by Saki or H.H. Monroe called The Open Window. One is Gift to the Magi, O. Henry, also Dead After 20 Years, tight, quick. What you need is to determine the conflict and then resolve that conflict. And is it her internal conflict? Is it the father-in-law's external conflict of man versus nature, man versus this illness? You figure that out, but tell us that and tie it in, and I think it'll be a lot more powerful, because we want to know if we're following her emotions or her physically going to the appointments, as Ed pointed out, or if she is observing her father-in-law's experience. And then we want to see that it can be in a whole day. It doesn't have to be the whole experience of all the and the cancer is actually not just one episode,
Right.
but it could be just that day. But please resolve it somehow so that there's.
I read stories twice. Every time we get involved in a story, I read it twice. So the first one I'm saying, okay, I'm reading a short story, and the short story in my mind is literally graphed out in my head. Introducing character and setting, introduce conflict, rising action, and so on. That's the standard short story. This does not fit in that. It really revolves around a personal experience, much like a memoir. And if it's a memoir, forget everything else that everyone has said here. Because if it is a memoir, then it is a jumble of confusing thoughts that people will read and understand. Because I read and understood. If you want to create a short story, you have to disassemble the entire story. Literally take it apart, chunk by chunk, and then figure out where it goes. I've listed, I thought it was 14, but I doubled up on one, so it's really 13. But I've listed 13 elements that I think would help you to understand. Write it down and put it somewhere on a graph or on a piece of paper, or just outline for yourself where you want the story. Because at some points I was lost as to, are we 8 years ago or are we now? How are things working out when people left? The cake, I think, is a terrific symbol, and I love it because if you do it properly, and this is where the writer's art comes in, and you'll spend hours trying to rearrange this whole thing. It's going to take forever. Because you've got, these are all
Very encouraging, isn't it?
No, I'm not kidding, but it's worthwhile. You've got 13 elements of a very good story. You have to put them in the right place and develop them, because they're really, you can't just throw, my mother lovingly bakes my cakes. You can't just throw that out there. You can't just throw out, my in-laws moved in with us during the second week of September. That's not enough, because it's a flat-out statement. You have to then back it up with emotions. How do people feel about it? How are the kids reacting to it? In other words, you've got a story that is dealt to us in 2.5 pages, but really needs 15 or 20 pages to complete. To, as Julie says, flesh it out, because it's all there, but it needs additional. But the cake thing, I would save that to the end, because what happens is Maury comes in for the second time and then leaves for the second time, going off to the hospital, and you hit the cellar and eat the whole cake. A great image, because what are you doing? You're seeking solace from your mother. This is mom's cake, and you are there now getting comfort, literally.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
physically
Yes,
from the
that's so
cake.
true.
Yeah.
You may not have known it, you may know, and you could do as a summary at the end. I didn't realize how emotionally important that cake was. It was really living with my mother and mom, Pat, hold my shoulder, whatever. But the cake, I think, at the end is a very devastating image to have. As long as you can relate that to the emotional support that the cake gives you. It's like magic. It's almost religious. You're going there for comfort. It's not the cake that you want, it's the comfort
Right.
that you seek.
Absolutely.
So I
Yeah.
think you might want to bring, and that's the end of your story. That would,
This is a
that's,
I agree
Yeah,
too.
it's really
Yes.
interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Could you please mention the story about cake that you share with all of us? I love when you reference this. Is it
Story.
Sook's cake? No.
oh, suck.
Oh.
Yes. Another powerful story about a
Yeah, oh, yeah.
relationship and baking.
If you want to, well, it has very little to do with your story, but it's about a cake. It is written by Truman Capote called A Christmas Memory. One of the best short stories I've ever read. And I got a book of Truman Capote's short stories, and I said, I'm going to read a dozen magnificent gems. Wrong. Some of them are crap, and I throw them out in I say, God damn, that's lousy. But this one story, no, there's several, but this one story, it's called A Christmas Memory, is absolutely heartbreaking. It's wrenching, and it's all centered around Sook, an elderly aunt who is clearly over the hill, Lulu, and a little kid. And the little kid has one friend, Sook. And Christmas time, they make their fruit cake. Is that? I was going to say vegetable cake, but that's way too healthy. No, it's a fruit cake. And the story revolves around making that fruit. It's just a terrific. But your story doesn't include making the cake. It's eating the cake, and that's where
Yeah.
the reward is.
But it's
Right.
beautiful.
Actually-
It's the mother's love, or this
Yes, it
maternal
is. Yeah,
relative's
yeah.
love, and the power of cake and baking and warmth and
Yeah,
the
yeah,
physical
the maternal
comfort,
thing,
the
yeah,
emotional
yeah.
comfort.
Yeah, I was going to actually mention the cake again. A way to, again, this is if you're going to make it a short story, not a memoir. In other words,
But a
not-
memoir can still be story. I've read
Yes,
several
but I'm
memoirs.
changing
Yes.
reality.
Yes.
Okay, okay,
In other words,
gotcha.
I'm changing reality. This is not what actually happened.
Okay, go
Okay.
ahead.
Never let reality stand
Exactly.
in the way.
Reality is for
Forget for losers.
to change it slightly. It could be that in all the hubbub, nobody remembers her birthday except for the mother, and the cake is there,
It's symbolic.
but
Even more
Wait.
symbolic.
Yes, of the
Yeah,
mother's
that's good. I
love
like that.
and
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
nobody
Yes.
remembers that it's her birthday, and then she has that.
What
as a-
movie is that? That's
16 Candles.
16 Candles. Because her sister's getting married.
Yes.
The other thing was when you were talking about the evening when the father-in-law is
rushed off
ill
to the- yes.
and is rushed to the
Yeah.
hospital. So this again kind of talks about her position here, because they all rush off to the hospital and they just leave her there.
Yes.
She has to take care of the house. She has to take care of the kids. She has to. It's a Tuesday night. They have to go to school the next day. If they wake up with questions, she's the one who has to handle it. So again,
What is
more,
she doing? We're very curious.
Yeah, more that she's just left, without any thought that she has to take up the slack on this. So I think that's an important thing.
Yeah.
And then in the end, she gets comfort, where she can. So.
So if this is going to remain a memoir, just delete this entire
Yeah,
session.
exactly. That's
Just
right.
means garbage.
What do you want to
think
do?
so.
What do you
I
want to do?
disagree. I think it makes perfect sense that it's, I went for brevity because I think I could get, believe me, I could go on and I could go on, and people would be like, yeah, enough, we've heard it. But, so I went for brevity, but I see that in doing so, there's a lot of holes.
Yes. So
Sometimes
right,
just
you can
need
always
more.
edit. Just
Yeah.
right, throw it all out there. Ooh, that's
Yeah.
a gem. Or ooh, really don't need that passage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I
Honestly,
see all
get it all
this, like
down.
to me, again, I think it's really difficult when you are writing from a personal experience,
very difficult.
knowing what you know seemed so obvious.
Yes.
You know?
Well,
Yep.
speaking of what you know, I did not see here at all your relationship with your in-laws. Please let us know.
Well, that
how
would all
close
come
you are,
out
how
if
wonderful
you
you
do
are.
a
Yes,
scene.
please explore that.
If she does a whole scene, then that will all
Yes.
come out.
Yes,
Right.
sure.
If it's all
Yeah.
real time and
Yes.
it starts in the afternoon and goes to the end of the night where you're
Yeah.
eating the cake, then you
Because
can
some
bring
people are
out,
resentful when their in-laws move in,
You
and
can-
others are welcoming, and some are in the middle. Tell us how.
and you can
ex-
bring
yeah.
out each, you can bring out what she's thinking along with people's personalities based on how they act and what they say. And you don't have to tell us what they're, show us with how they react.
Right, right. No, I think it's all excellent feedback, quite honestly.
Do you have
And is
questions for
the
us?
mother a powerful supporter? Is she panicking and melting and needing to be bolstered by the daughter and the in-law and the son? What is her? And you don't have to answer that right now. Just think about it.
And that's
Everyone's
the other
role.
thing. Yeah, it's, I realized as we were discussing this that she is almost nowhere in this, which is
It's Freudian.
I was going to say, which is really, really a miss.
That's been done. A major character has been nothing more than a camera. I mean,
Yes.
think of Ishmael. Ishmael doesn't do anything. He's simply reporting what he sees. So it's been done before.
Yes.
So it's not a devastating thing, but it means a whole lot more to get this character out in front of us and let us understand how she's feeling at the time. We can put two and two together and understand somebody in the family's dying of cancer.
Right.
How you'd feel. The art of writing is how you felt.
Knock on wood is living with. Not
Yes,
dying
that's
with.
true.
yeah,
We
yeah.
fear that he
Yeah.
is, but he isn't. Also, it's the sandwich generation concept. This mom has
Right.
fairly young children, and then she's
Right.
caring for her parents in a maternal way, in-laws in a maternal way.
Right.
Do you have questions for us?
I don't think so. I think I'm really very grateful. I think that this has been excellent feedback, quite honestly.
I wrote in here that I'd like to see a rewrite if you want to share it.
Okay.
Yes.
It's going to be 15 pages long.
I do think that's a good estimate. I think
Yeah.
15 to
Yes.
20.
Yes.
The other thing that you'll see in here, we don't have to review everything, but for where at least for me, where I might have recommended a word change or
Yep.
commas and a
Tenses.
couple of tenses, that I just marked it up so that you can see it.
Okay.
So you'll see
sounds
that. I'll scan everything and get it to you, and it's on our website
Terrific.
when we're done. So.
Very good.
Anything else?
All right.
I think,
Thank you all very much.
good.
Thank you.
Great.
I really
Great.
appreciate it.
A lot to work with.
Thanks.
You've got a lot to work
Yes.
with.
Food for thought.
Yeah.
Right.
You could
But
use
it-
this.
Yeah. Cake for them. yeah.
Cakewalk. Cakewalk.
Well, thanks for
Great.
coming
Thank
today. And thank you everyone else for joining us for this episode of Writers Infusion. We will see you next time. Keep writing.